Testing. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our very first meeting of the Foraging Task Force. I was trying to get my chair to see if it could go up any higher, but it is not going to go any higher. So, I want to say thank you for taking your time to be part of this very, very important work. Majority of us are here. There's a few more members that may be coming in as we get started, but we should go ahead and just get started. I want to first just say that the purpose of this task force is to was created by the Minnesota legislature, recognizing that this is something really important that we have to look into because we need to protect our state resources while we're honoring our long tradition of Minnesotans who forage. Foraging, as you know, is more than just harvesting food, but it really is about connecting with the land. It's about our culture and our community. And as we work together here, we are going to build I think I would say an environment of collaboration and understanding, but also that knowing that our work here is very vital. It really is. We'll be reviewing, studying, and discussing foraging, everything foraging in our state. And we're going to be giving recommendations for fair and practical guidelines that will protect our ecosystem today and preserve them for future generations. And also to ensure that we have access to foraging. So for me, I think what makes this task force so special is all of you around this table. Each and every single one of you bring something special and unique and bring a perspective and that experience and expertise to this discussion. So I just want to say how much I appreciate you and that your voice really is essential to balancing conservation and access. And that we'll be doing that work together here in this task force. And then with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you.
Oh, I turned yours off. Oh,
Getting used to the room. Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Klein. Here we go. How's that? My name is Stephanie Klein. I want to start out by asking everyone to say your name whenever you speak. It's a habit I'm trying to form as well. It's kind of tough to do, but we do have folks attending on Zoom. And having attended that way, what I've found is that in these rooms, the audio is great, but you can't necessarily see who's speaking. So in order to make sure that this is one group and one meeting and not an in-person group and an online group kind of separate, just try to remember to say your name when you speak. And I'm saying that so that I remember as well. I am a consultant with Management Analysis and Development, also known as MAD. We're not angry, but we are the state's in-house management consulting practice. And our purpose is to help agencies and the state run better and be better. So one of the things we often do is help facilitate task forces and working groups. I'm Stephanie. I'm going to introduce two of my colleagues. It'll come back to me. I'll introduce a fourth colleague who's not able to join us, and then we'll go on from there. So Matt and Jennifer, did you want to say hello, please?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. I can go first. I almost said good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Williams. I use he, him pronouns. I am another senior management consultant at MAD, and I am supporting Stephanie as she supports all of you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jennifer Hawkins, also a senior management consultant with the MAD team, and I'll be in a supporting role for this task force as well.
And then there's another Stephanie who goes by Steph Heim. She's not able to be here today, but she will probably become a familiar face as well. And our role is really just to help the chair and help the staff make sure that these meetings run smoothly, that they're productive and effective, and also looking not helping just with each individual meeting, but looking across the life cycle of the task force to make sure that you're all able to accomplish your goals and develop really effective, powerful recommendations to send to the legislature. And from here, I will hand over to Nick.
Hi, members. I am Nick Nero. I'm a research analyst with the LCC. So I'm nonpartisan staff here to sort of assist in researching needs or administrative needs alongside my colleague, DeMarco Welton, and Mina Zhang, who is out this week. We will be folks you will be receiving lots of emails to. And if you have any questions, you can, of course, reach out to us. And then I think I'll hand it back over to Sundar Pa.
So I'm Senator Susan Pa, and I represent Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, and Osseo in Senate District 38. I'm also the chief author of the bill that established this task force, and excited for the work. Now, I want to first just say thank you to Angie for bringing these treats and many things on that table. So for those who have not gotten one, feel free to get up anytime and grab one. They're delicious, and there's lots of chocolate in here, which is really great. I do prefer that people just call me Susan, and so first name works good. And if you guys are okay with that, if we could do first names, that would be wonderful. Thank you. And then why don't we go around this side and then loop around with introductions.
Okay, so my name is David Schultz, and I'm representing here the Minnesota Foraging Alliance. And when I wear my other hat, I'm also a professor of political science at Hamline University. And where, for among other things, for the last 12 years, I've taught a class on environmental policy and science and public policy.
Hi, my name is Angela Gupta. I'm a University of Minnesota Extension Forester out of the Rochester Regional Office. I do a lot with terrestrial invasive species and have recently done some foraging with my colleagues in SNAP Ed with the Hmong and the Karen communities. And I am the one who brought the muffins that have aronia berry and ginkgo nuts in them, and the hackberry nuts and the sweet grass and the catnip cat toys. Would be delightful if all of those forage foods did not go home with me. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Honored to be here. Thank you, Senator Susan. Gary Wyatt, Extension Educator with the University of Minnesota Extension, based out of Mankato Regional Office. I teach agroforestry and invasive species, mainly terrestrial invasive species like buckthorn and so forth. Agroforestry, if you don't know the 5 practices of that, is windbreaks, alley cropping, silvopasture, repair and forest buffers, and forest farming, which is kind of connected to ginseng and shiitake mushroom growing and so forth, and obviously kind of leading into foraging and so forth. I've taught some foraging classes with our local extension educators in 2023. Yeah, we have still a lot of county-based faculty, and that seemed to be a really popular topic. So, I wanted to share too that our forestry team put together a Minnesota Harvester Handbook, and I think you have a handout at your table. And yeah, you can purchase those at the University of Minnesota bookstore. And the table of contents is on the back of that fact sheet. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Greg Qualley. I'm with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and I'll give a brief pitch for those of you that don't know Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We are the premier public land advocates in the state of Minnesota and also in the nation. We stand up for your rights to access public land, access public resources, and we do the dirty work down at the legislatures and at the national capital. So my background a little bit, I'm a retired DNR forester. I've been a hunter, fisher, and gatherer my entire life. And I'm extremely glad to have been asked to participate in this task force. And just a little background on this task force and on other task forces that the legislature has created. To my knowledge and to my DNR counterparts' knowledge, this is only the second time that a task force has been created to deal with natural resource issues in a consumptive fashion. The other one was wild rice, and that was in 2018. And if I'm not correct, there was a task force before that on wild rice. So important. There's a lot of regulations around wild rice that might serve as a good guideline for this committee to take a look at. And then, of course, here's what we're here for, right? These are chanterelles, and they're freshly picked. And if you have any doubt whether they're edible or not, we'll refer to Peter over here and he can confirm it. But there's probably a bag of each you for these right here. These were picked yesterday. This was picked last year. Sorry for the lengthy introduction, but I thought it was important to make a tie in here to some of the stuff. So
Thank you, Greg.
I'm going to interject just for a second, and that was a terrific introduction and a great background. I did want to let everybody know, after this meeting, you'll be receiving emails from MAD asking if you'd like to participate in a brief interview where we will spend one-on-one time with each of you, asking your goals for the task force, your areas of expertise, what you'd like to learn, what you want to make sure others learn, all of those kinds of things. Since we have so much to do during the task force, we thought that's a good way to balance our in-meeting time and still really have you all be able to get to know each other. We won't be like making a list of everybody's information, just because that could get a little long to read, but we'll consolidate everything, make sure everyone's perspectives are reflected in, kind of themes and shared goals and desired outcomes. So that will be coming after this. And we hope to get those all squared away within the coming not too many weeks. So feel free to please, let us know who you are here, but you will have opportunity to share in a lot more depth as well and to have that come out to the group. Yeah.
My name is Skinner, I'm Associate Superintendent for Three Rivers Park District. We have 20 parks and 27,000 acres, and we have 7 large park reserves, and foraging is at the top of our mind as well, and this mirrors some of the work that we're doing internally as well.
Oh, and just a reminder to everybody to flip on your mic when you speak, and then flip it off when you're done.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Wappler with the Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry. I am the Central Region Assistant Region Manager for Forestry at our St. Paul Region headquarters just across town. I've had 18 years experience with the department, and I've been a forester or a supervisor pretty much across the entire state. So talked with a lot of forest users in the past, those that collect berries, mushrooms, other products that the forest provides. So honored to be part of this group. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Bruns. I'm also with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. I will admit I worked for Wisconsin DNR for many years, where I served as a law enforcement officer with the DNR and also as a state park supervisor for many years. When I joined the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, I had the privilege of supervising Fort Snelling State Park for quite a few years, so a lot of hands-on field work there. My current role is in State Parks and Trails. I'm the resource and asset management lead, which includes all of our development, our land acquisition, and then all of our natural and cultural resource management. So thankful to be part of the team.
Good afternoon. Ingrid Schneider from the University of Minnesota in the Department of Forest Resources. I'm a professor and I teach and do research in outdoor recreation and nature-based tourism. I'm also the co-director of our Environmental Science Policy and Management degree program, and really excited and honored to be here as well.
Hi, my name's Peter Martignaco. I'm the president of the Minnesota Mycological Society and also partnered in the Minnesota Foraging Alliance. And I'm pleased that we were able to, with Senator Paz's support, to bring this group together to help consider policy on foraging as it moves forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Roger Scraba. I'm from Ely, Minnesota. I represent District 3A, 14,400 square miles, Boundary Waters, Voyageurs National Park, Superior National Forest, CHIP, everything. So kind of have, my phone rings when we do stuff like this, and it's good to be here. I'd ask questions, but we can't, but I'm assuming all the stuff we're getting has been picked from public land, right? If not, that's okay, you know, if you grow it yourself. Yeah, right, so.
Some of it might, some of it shouldn't be.
Right. So one of the reasons I want to get involved in this is I have grown up since a wee young lad picking berries all over the woods and for free. And I want to continue to do it for free. So thank you.
Senator Steve Green. I served north central Minnesota from about 10 miles north of Detroit Lakes up to the northwest angle, and then all of Monoman County over to Deer River. So big area, forestry, farming, industry, resorts. So.
Thank you. And I believe we have at least one member attending on Zoom. If you would introduce yourself.
Yeah, Representative Alex Falconer, represents 49A, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie area. I'm excited to be on this task force. So thanks all. Sorry, for some reason I didn't have this on my calendar and I found out last minute. So I'm not in person, so I do apologize. I'm actually driving up to Representative Scraba's district, to Ely, right now. My background, I grew up in Red Wing, Minnesota. We deer hunting on my parents' farm area, and picking morel mushrooms and raspberries and blackberries in the area. Currently very much enjoy all the blueberries and raspberries and wild rice and everything we can gather from the Boundary Waters Wilderness area. And excited to ensure that we have sustainable rules and regulations so that future Minnesotans can do the same.
And Chris Poppleton?
Thank you. Hi, can everyone hear me? Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm a great, it's great. I am crossing the border from Canada to the US, so I may drop off briefly here. We took our son to college, so I'm apologizing for not being there. I will be at future meetings. But Kristen Poppleton, I'm the assistant director with Minnesota Trout Unlimited. I'm really excited to be a part of this task force. I'm a lifelong naturalist, hunter, fisher, and background in conservation biology and environmental education. So I'm excited to be here and tune in, and apologies for not being there, like I said, but had to get that kid to college. So thanks.
All right, thank you. So let's bring up the agenda for today. And I just wanted to review the agenda really briefly with everyone. You can see it on the screen there. Today, what we have is we've already gone through the welcome and introductions, but we will be doing the election of the chair and the vice chair that will be leading and facilitating our meetings going forward. We'll be talking about legislation and open meeting law, administrative topics, task force and member responsibilities, background information, and then we'll talk about our next steps and then adjourn. And I think that we should be out of here on time at 2. But if some of us want to hang around a little bit later just to get to know each other a little bit better, I'm going to be around as well. So why don't we go ahead and move forward to the election of chair and vice chair.
So just a quick logistical note. We did agree that the convener, Susan, will continue to lead this meeting and then hand over to the new chair afterwards, since we had an opportunity to actually plan what we're doing and we don't want to throw anybody into the deep end. But with that, I think you should ask for nominations.
Yep. So if I can get nominations for a chair or a vice chair. And I do want to just disclose that nominations for chair and vice chair per our statute must be a legislator. So that's, and we put it in that way so it's easier for that person to be able to work with our staff on a consistent basis to make sure that we're prepped for our meetings each time. We do have 4 legislators here. Myself is one, Senator Green, Representative Scraba. Okay, Roger. And Representative, sorry. Falconer, that's online with us. I'm sorry, I don't have the legislators' names on here. So if I can get nominations for chair or vice chair.
Peter Martinaco, I'd like to nominate Senator Pa for chair of this task force.
Thank you, Peter. Senator Green.
Steve Green, like nominate Roger Strauss for vice chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, so it looks like we have myself, Senator Pa, as the nomination for chair, and Representative. You and I are going to really get to know each other because I'm going to learn your last name real well. Yeah, Scraba for vice chair. And if I don't see any other nominations, then I wonder if we need to necessarily do votes, Stephanie.
Nick, do we still do a roll call vote? Can we do
We can do
an all in favor, say
Yeah,
aye?
yeah, maybe a voice instead of a roll
We
call.
have to do
Roll call.
We have to do roll call.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do roll call.
Okay.
Shall we do them individually or together?
I will, oh, yeah, let's do them together and I will call on folks in order, in alphabetical order by last name. So this vote is if you are in favor or opposed to Senator Pa as chair and Representative Scraba for vice chair. Kelly Bruns, sorry.
Thank you. Kelly Bruns in favor of.
Representative Falconer.
Representative Falconer, vote in favor.
Thank you. I believe Dale Gentry is absent. Senator Green.
Steve Green in favor.
Thank you. Angie Gupta.
Angie Gupta in favor.
Brad Harrington. Absent. Greg Kvale? Qualley, I'm sorry. And Peter.
Peter Martinaco in favor.
Susan.
Susan Pa in favor.
Chris. I'm guessing Chris is probably crossing the border at the moment.
Oh, Chris, I'm sorry, Chris, I go by Kristen, so I didn't even know your, Kristen Poppleton in favor.
Thank you. Ingrid.
Ingrid Schneider in favor.
David.
David Schultz in favor.
Luke.
Luke Skinner in favor.
Roger.
In favor.
Matt.
Matt Wappler in favor.
Gary.
Gary Wyatt in favor.
We are concluded with the voting. Senator Susan Pa has been elected chair and Representative Roger Scraba has been elected vice chair. Any remarks from the chair or the vice chair before we continue?
I'll do a really brief and then I'm going to encourage my vice chair to say something, though he's like, no. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to chair this task force. I really do look forward to this work together. And I really am really looking forward to learning from all of you, actually. I'm probably the one who least know about foraging, probably among all of you here. Although I love foraging and I have found that I've been doing it wrong for many years. And so, but I really look forward to learning from all of you and appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you, Chair. I could say probably 30, 40 years ago was when I first picked my first morel, which I've never eaten because I don't like mushrooms. Back then, I mean, I picked bags of them, gave them to people. Here you go, here you go. And now when I aged, I said, you know, maybe I should try them. So I started trying them and I'm like, dang, these are pretty good, so you can teach an old dog new tricks, and I'm someone that is willing to go out of my way to accommodate. So I look forward to working with you. I think there's a great representation of people on this committee, and I too look forward into learning more about, what Minnesota has and what we're doing. I come from an area where everybody, when I go door knocking out in the hinterlands, I mean, we have mile-long driveways and they're gone picking, they're gone doing things. It's just, they're right. That's what they feel like they need to do. So I want to assure people, that I really, I'm trying to find some information, but I'll stop now. But I think it's great what we're doing, and I look forward to working with the chair too. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Right, so I'm going to hand it over to Nick.
Members, so just to cover the enabling legislation, this task force was established in 2025, and it has these 6 purposes, which I can read for you all, which is to gather and review data and information, including traditional ecological knowledge on the impact of foraging on species resilience, ecosystem health, and other aspects of Minnesota's diverse biomes. Review existing regulations governing foraging activities on state lands. Number 3, develop recommendations for science-based, including traditional ecological knowledge, foraging guidelines for state lands that balance public access and foraging opportunities with conservation needs. Number 4, develop recommendations for increasing public understanding of sustainable foraging practices that include safety and ecological considerations. Number 5, solicit public input when appropriate. And number 6, develop recommendations for reduced price foraging permits. What your work will boil down into ultimately is a report that is due February 28th, 2026. That report is sent to the commissioner of the DNR and the relevant legislative committees. In the statute, it mentions that the report should make recommendations that are quote unquote specific and actionable. So this is your chance to write recommendations of not just ideas of what law could do or should do, but what the law should be or what the regulations should be. So the report must detail proposals for changes or additions to statutes or rules to effectuate the task force's recommendations. And then the task force legally expires on March 15th of next year. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of that.
I do want to just recognize Assistant Commissioner Bob Myers. Bob, will you stand just so that those who do not know you will get a chance to meet you? I've had the opportunity to work with Bob, just incredible work that we've done together, really just understanding all the different perspectives. So this report will be going to his office.
And then the other issue I will cover this morning or this afternoon is the open meeting law, which applies to this body, and it requires that government bodies like this are open to the public. And the way open is defined is that the public can attend and observe, relevant meeting documents are available, and proper notice is given. And the way that the courts have defined that a meeting is being held is a quorum, which means a majority of this group in person or by telephone or Zoom, and discusses any topic related to official business, whether or not action is taken or considered. So that law does not apply if a small group of you, 3 or so, are discussing official business. But if it becomes a quorum anytime, that suddenly becomes a meeting of this body, which is why staff would discourage discussing official group activities via email amongst everyone. One-way communication, if you're emailing myself or Stephanie or the chair, that obviously does not run afoul. But if there was one big group email, suddenly we would be running afoul of the open meeting law. Other thing I want to note on, oh, there we go, is that open meeting do not require public comment. I think we will absolutely be making time for public comment as we get going, and it's soliciting public opinion is one of the requirements of this group. But every meeting we might not have time for public testimony. Happy to answer any other questions people have about open meeting law, either today after this meeting or in an email.
Any questions? Okay.
If not, I think I'm turning it over to Stephanie.
Yes, thanks. This is Stephanie again. We have a number of administrative topics, the kind of housekeeping to get things set up to operate successfully moving forward, and also to ask your thoughts on some of those things. So the first one is about meetings. Then we'll talk about how we want to get community input, input from members of the public. And we'll talk about some operating agreements for how we all think we'd like to work together. So if we could go to the next slide, please. We have a variety of formats available. Fully on-site, hybrid, which is what we're doing today because we have a few folks joining on Zoom, or fully online. In our post-COVID world, I think we're all pretty familiar with all of those, and they really each have their own advantages and disadvantages, right? So online is really easy, but it can be a little impersonal. Doesn't mean it will be impersonal, it just means it'll be a little more effort to make sure that it's truly collaborative. We want the task force to come together as a group as opposed to a bunch of individuals saying stuff, right? Because you're going to be learning from each other and teaching each other and learning together from others as well. So, that's the upside and downside of online. On site, obviously very in person, but harder to get to, requires a much bigger chunk of time out of your calendar. And hybrid gives people the format that they want, but again, more challenges in making sure that we are collaborating all as a group, as opposed to kind of having an online meeting and an in-person meeting functioning separately. One of the reasons that MAD was brought in to facilitate is because we are happy to take on any of those challenges. So don't feel like you have to choose one or the other, but I did want your thoughts on what your preferences are, and to mention that what some task forces have done is alternate in person and online. In reality, the in-person meetings do generally wind up being hybrid. There's often somebody who can't make it. But I just like your thoughts on meeting format, if you have preferences or suggestions.
Open to anybody.
Madam Chair, sometimes if the business we need to do can be done online, just quick stuff, approved, or if we all have the information, sometimes that's better, it's just for everyone. But sometimes, if we agree, maybe we should meet this month somewhere to get more information across, because it does come better, read better, comes across better when we're here versus online. Still get it, but it's your responsibility to digest it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better when you have other people's ideas, but if it's fully on site, I don't know I feel better if it's a hybrid on site. That way it gives everyone an opportunity, if they can't be here, still to participate.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I am going to clarify, when we are talking about online, we're talking about everybody being together on Zoom or Teams. And we will, in those cases, we'll ask that people have cameras on as much as possible so that it is as close to in person as it can be, and we can look at each other and talk with one another. Still doesn't beat in person, but just to clarify what's meant by online.
Anybody else?
Sure.
David?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just two observations here. One is in terms of the committee itself, in terms of, let's say, I don't know how far some people have to travel. I heard a couple of you sort of mention that you're maybe traveling quite a distance or something like that, which I think factors into making it possible for hybrid. And then the second point gets to when we start to do some kind of public input. Clearly, I think I don't want to burden, everybody from the public and expect them, especially if they're coming from greater parts of Minnesota. So I think some variation of the hybrid where we allow both the public and some of the committee members to ease some of the travel burdens makes the most sense.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Gary?
Madam Chair. Oh, yeah, I have a comment. Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, David, for that. Yeah, Angie's in Rochester. I'm in Mankato. I live further west in St. James, but I really am in awe of this environment, which is really cool, and we're face to face. I think if we're having speakers come in, I think it'll be a greater need to have a face to face here with the speakers coming to our committee. I think would be valuable. I think online speaking person and then questions and so forth, it just gets a little goofy. Obviously over Zooms, we've done Zooms before, but I think face to face, if we were having people discussing projects or different types of foraging type of regulations or their recommendations for different foraging type foods or berries or nuts or so forth, or decoratives, I think it'd be valuable to be here in person.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else? Okay.
Angie.
Angie.
Angie Gupta, and I generally agree with both of those comments. I really appreciated that you made it clear that the aspiration for today was to be in person, so I could help prioritize that. And if it looks like the agenda is better in person, I appreciate that information. And it doesn't mean we can always make it in person. The hybrid is a really wonderful option, but knowing that there is greater value at some meetings, I think is super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Peter?
I agree that, for flexibility reasons for all the members, hybrid seems like it makes, if we can emphasize as much on-site participation as possible, I find that more collaborative than any Zoom consideration.
Okay. Thank you. David?
David Schultz again, one more observation. Do we anticipate at all that we're going to be out in any of the parks or anything or not? I'm just wondering about that in terms of it, because I think if we do, we have to factor that into what we want to do also. And I don't know where we're going to go, but that's raising it as a question.
Yep. And in fact, Assistant Commissioner Meyer suggested a field trip. We are, so after this meeting, we'll be sending a survey to ask about more general availability. You received the earlier poll about the time that wound up being today. And we'll also be asking about potential dates for a field trip. So we won't do our meetings in the outdoor locations, but we will do at least that one field trip. We're trying to arrange it before September 15th, so that we're not crossing paths with hunters. With large group, little important to make sure everybody stays safe. So there are a few locations we're looking at options that are within an hour of the Twin Cities. And when we send out that survey, we'll also ask if you have other suggestions besides the ones that we're considering for the location. And then we'll get something probably for like a weekday mid-morning between now and September 15th. So that'll be a one-time thing rather than the official meeting.
Yeah.
David Schultz, I assume you've anticipated how to handle that with the open meetings law.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nick is our expert.
So it looks like with everybody's input, we'll probably end up doing hybrid in a few meetings, maybe all virtual. And then meetings that are basically hybrid. They're in person, but it would be a hybrid option. And we can always cater the topic according to whether or not we're in person or virtual, and the presentations and what we have going on, depending on what those dates are. And Stephanie had already mentioned that we'll get those, it's a dual poll or something to all of you so we can kind of gauge what your availability is. We're thinking maybe every 3 weeks we meet. According to everybody's availability. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. And Stephanie, again, we're 2 hours is going to be pretty much our standard meeting time. We can pack in a lot and without having to kind of eat up people's entire day. And depending on what we hear back from you about your availability, it's always nice if we can have it be, you know, like every Wednesday, every third Wednesday at noon is easy to schedule for. But if there's somebody or any members who can never make Wednesday at noon, then we'll probably alternate. And so one meeting would be Wednesdays at noon, and then, you know, the alternating third week is whatever time works for the folks that can't make Wednesdays at noon. And we'll be, you know, obviously taking notes and posting materials to the website in compliance with open meeting law, but that also helps members who have to miss a meeting. That is everything on the meetings. Any other thoughts on kind of how we approach the meetings when we have them? Anything like that?
Steve?
If it's possible, nothing before noon and finish early. I got a 5-hour drive for here.
Yeah.
So it's 5 hours, 10 hours for a 2-hour meeting, which is fine. But if I have to come early in the morning, then I got to get a hotel room, which is another day of work lost, basically. So if you keep that in mind when you're scheduling.
Okay. So we will keep that in mind for the field trip as well. We were thinking like 10 a.m. would help people avoid traffic, but noon should work as well. So we can plan around that depending on what we hear from everybody about availability. But that's an important point. Thank you for bringing that forward. All right, let's go to the next slide and talk about community input. There we go. So we want to balance public input with giving all of you plenty of time to work and learn together in the meetings. So we're going to do a combination of in-meeting input opportunities and separate public listening sessions. We will invite community members to sign up to speak during each meeting if it's relevant for the topic that we're discussing, or that you'll be learning about that day. There will be strict 2-minute limits and probably a cap on the number of speakers so that we can reserve enough time for you to do your work. But anyone who wants to speak can also, of course, share additional input in writing. And that can be really powerful to hear somebody give kind of the highlights in their 2 minutes and then have additional information in writing that they will often ask them to provide in advance. So kind of you've read it and now you're just getting their take on it, or afterward is also obviously very helpful. Then so that we can make sure that everybody does have an opportunity who wants to contribute their thoughts or ideas to the task force. We'll do public listening sessions. We're thinking there would probably be several throughout the life cycle of the task force. 1 or 2 would be in person like this. The remainder would be online. We'd vary the times of day so that people can, who work different schedules can carve out an hour to join the meeting and share their thoughts. We would, take detailed notes for task force members who are unable to attend. These are not actually intended to be full task force meetings, and we would, in fact, want to avoid having quorum. So I think for every public listening session, we'd probably ask for, 2 to 5 of you to join if you can. Make sure at least a couple of you are there to hear things in person, and then everybody else will be caught up with the notes on what people have shared. And then written input will always be welcome. And at every meeting, we will let everyone know that they can email Nick to express, to share their input, and that's also who they would contact if they wanted to sign up for a public input slot during one of our meetings. Yeah, thoughts on that?
So,
Stephanie, yeah, Greg Qualley.
Greg,
So are these going to be structured or just open-ended? I mean, there's a lot of input, good input that can gain, really be gained if we ask the right questions. So I'm wondering if it's going to be somewhat structured or just open.
We generally try to kind of combine it. So we'll share a list of questions that we hope people will speak to, but give them the opportunity to share whatever it is that they want. So, we certainly don't want to not listen to what somebody has to say just because we haven't thought of the question. But we also know that having some questions can help people gather their thoughts and articulate what they want to share. So we would tend to try to kind of do a combined approach. And so we expect some conversation at upcoming meetings about what questions we want to share with folks that are coming to a public input session. And those public input sessions often include like just a brief 5-minute presentation at the beginning to ground them in, what the group is doing, if there's a specific topic that we are looking for their input on, and that kind of thing. So we'll be thinking about that as well.
Okay. We've got Kristen online. Go ahead, Kristen.
Hey, thank you so much. This is Kristen Poppleton. I was just wondering if the public sessions would be held in different locations across the state. I'm sort of following the AG is currently having a water task force and he's holding listening sessions across the state. And I sat in on the first one of those online and it just seemed like it worked really well to bring in like a current topic from that area of the state related to water and then having speaking. And I could see something similar being useful for this task force.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about. I know it's really challenging from a technology perspective for the LCC staff to make sure that we've got the technology we need for everybody to be heard. And what we would like to do is, since we're going to do the majority of them online, is ask for each of you to help with getting the word out so that folks that are joining online are not only joining from the metro area. That would be the way that we would want to get input from across the state. Part of the reason for not, I don't want to say making the effort, but making really the very large effort to go to multiple locations across the state is we're on such a tight timeline. We'll talk more about what we plan to do at individual meetings, probably at the next meeting, but essentially we've got September and October for you to learn everything as much as possible that of what you want to learn in order to identify recommendations. So building of recommendations and some learning as well. That's going to be in, probably November and December, right, Nick? And then refining those recommendations and getting a report written. That's January, and then it's due in February. So doing all of that and also getting around the state for in-person listening sessions is just a little too ambitious for a rapid fire task force. Yes.
It's Peter Margnaco. Would it be possible to have some of these online listening sessions be, area specific?
Yeah.
Rather
absolutely.
than, so, okay, so we, that it's publicized that this is for a particular area, that doesn't include the metro area, that is at different parts of the state, because I think that'd be
Terrific.
really valuable.
Terrific
Great
idea.
idea. Yeah. Okay. Alex online.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to flag in and just also ask if there's any intention on working with tribal governments. Obviously, the Ojibwe tribes in particular have hunting, gathering, sustainable or sustenance gathering treaty rights. So just want to make sure we're including them, as well as then just working with them, respecting their areas and bringing them into the fold.
This is Nick Nero. Yeah, and in fact, we are currently waiting on 2 appointments from the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council to this task force. One from the Ojibwe and one from the Dakota. Once we get those appointments, we'll also have those voices in this room.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Alex, for bringing up that point. That's really great. And I think that as we do the listening sessions, we can think about that too as a specific one that we can have as well. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any concerns about just what we've gone over with the community input? I have really leaned very heavily on Stephanie and Mad and our LCC staff because they've facilitated and coordinated many task force and have kind of seen some of the things that's worked well and some of the things that have not worked well. And so learning from those things so that we can have a really effective and productive task force. And this seems to be kind of something that worked well. But we're open. It is our decision how we want to run this task force. So I leave it to all of you to also advise what you'd like to see. But I think this is great. Roger.
Someone had to ask the question sooner or later, but do we have a budget to operate on? And if people are traveling around the state, do you get mileage to and from? And if it is, let's say you're coming from Rochester and you're coming to Ely or to Grand Marais or to International Falls or to Steve's district, that's an overnight. Does that include and per diem, all that? So we have a budget for folks?
We do.
Okay.
So with this legislation, all members of the task force do get per diem, they get lodging, they get mileage reimbursement.
Okay.
And please see, is it you, Nick, for the specifics on the paperwork for that?
It'll be DeMarco and Sally who are, I think, fishing the paperwork out now.
Okay.
Where certain members of the task force can receive a per diem. I think if you're a state employee, things might work differently. But for some members, and see them after the meeting for answers to that.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Yes, Ingrid. Thank you, Ingrid.
Yeah, hi, Ingrid Schneider. Just back to the community input a bit. I appreciate the access, talking about physical access and content. I was just curious about language, translations and.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't think that we've actually dived into that, but we'll have further conversation about that, Stephanie.
Yeah, we will. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good point. All right, next.
So the next thing, this is Stephanie again, we wanted to talk about is some operating agreements. This is something MAD uses with all types of groups that we facilitate. They're often called unwritten rules and unspoken norms, and we would like to speak them. These are just some suggestions. And we have time to talk today if you'd like to suggest additions or revisions. Ultimately, these are designed so that everybody has a voice and everybody feels that they have a voice. And it's a reminder to ourselves to really listen with intent, even when we're hearing things that we may not agree with on topics that we're really passionate about. And I am saying we because I have topics I am passionate about as well. So, I mean, this is something we all experience. It's not a criticism. It's really easy to get kind of caught up in the moment and not really listen to understand. So the operating agreements that I've drafted, state your name every time you speak. If we're meeting online, have your camera on whenever possible. Coming to meetings prepared. Take space, make space is really about whether you are the type of person who's comfortable speaking or the type of person who speaks less. If you are less likely to speak out in meetings, please take space in the meeting and be heard. And if you're someone who does a lot of speaking, please think about whether you are making space for the less verbose individuals to have time to gather their thoughts and speak. I just realized I duplicated say your name before speaking when I put that at the top. Sorry, I forgot to take that out. Refraining from side conversations, showing respect, being open-minded and curious about others' lived experiences, opinions, and viewpoints, focusing on the issue, not the people, and assuming good intent, but also acknowledging harm. And that can be misuse of terminology that might be upsetting. It could be reference to historical events that are emotionally charged. It can be anything. Assume good intent doesn't mean giving everyone a pass. So assume there's no intent to disrespect us individually, acknowledge the harm, and move on with the conversation when it's appropriate to do so. Any other additions? And those can come later as well. It can take a little time to digest. They can come 3 meetings in when there's a realization that there's maybe an edit or an addition that will help things run a little more smoothly. All right, I'm seeing nods around the table. We're not going to vote on adopting these, but I will encourage you with every meeting to consider whether there are any additions or revisions that might help the group function and speak together productively.
And if all you guys are okay, I think that the way we ran the meeting today works well, keeping it a little bit more informal, not necessarily that you have to speak through the chair or be recognized, but sometimes I will recognize you if they see multiple hands up. But otherwise, sometimes you feel free to just jump up and say what you got to say. It's okay as well. And we'll go from there. If someone goes long, I will remind you we have to move on. But in general, I think that the way we operated today works well, and first name basis for me works. And I hope that works for all of you too. If you prefer to be called something else or by title or maybe a different name, let us know, okay?
Yes.
Kelly Bruns, DNR. I might just ask too for the operating agreement, the unspoken rules, that we also consider that these are complicated topics that have a lot of scientific data and information, rules, laws behind them. So there are going to be times that we may need some space to resolve a question or an answer, and that we respect the time needed to make sure that we can collaboratively get to that and not have an expectation that it would be provided at the time that they're asked. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly.
That's a great addition. Thank
Yeah.
you. We will add that. And I'm just making a note here, but keep speaking up as ideas occur to you regarding operating agreements. But for now, I will hand over to Susan regarding task force and member responsibilities.
Okay. So you could follow along I'm just going to walk through the task force and member responsibilities that you see on the screen there. But it really is for this specific task force, what we're hoping to get out of this is that the end result is a report to the legislature with specific recommendations and suggestions to the legislature on what to consider in a legislative bill. Focus on what is within the authority of the Minnesota State Legislature and recommendations to the DNR. We would exclude anything that's under the jurisdiction of federal law, counties, or cities, because that we wouldn't have any authority there, although we can give them recommendations outside of our report to the legislature. And then for specific member responsibilities, I would say, please make sure that you go onto the DNR website. Maybe if you haven't been there recently, maybe get familiar with it, know what's on there already, and just be informed by the information that's on there. They actually have a lot of really good information on there. Review materials that are given to you or emailed to you would help us all in the discussion and formulation of ideas, and also to respond to suggestions or for basically discussion. And I'm going to add one that's not on there, but I would say ask for what you would like to learn more about. So direct that to the staff or myself. If there's something that we're not covering, let us know. I'd like to learn more about this, or I need this. If there's something specific you need, please bring that up.
Nick, did you have anything to add about?
Yeah, I just wanted to also mention this foraging task force has a website if any of you have not seen it. And we'll be posting all of the meeting materials along with YouTube recordings of these meetings. So if you want to go back and watch or review any material, it should all be up there. If you have any issues with that as well, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. And Nick, is all of our meetings here being, it's recorded and will be on there, right?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Right. From there, I believe we are handing over to DNR. Oh, Gary, go ahead.
Gary Wyatt, excuse me. Just had a question on the exclusions. I really appreciate the Native American representation on the task force, but this task force is not recommending any tribal restriction or, it's
No.
all state lands, right? All
Correct.
DNR. So, but I really cherish their inputs on the task force.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary, for bringing that up. Okay, we're going to hand over to the DNR for the presentation, and I'll be on screen.
Jessica, you are up.
Hello, can you hear me okay? I will share my screen just a second. Okay. Let me see. All right, can everyone see that all right?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, well, I'm Jessica Thiel. I'm the Forestry Division Planner for the DNR. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm just going to be giving like a high-level presentation about different types of lands that DNR manages. But there's a lot of information in there. I think you guys have the slides in your like printed materials, but let me know if you don't, if we can get that to you. Okay. Yeah, so this is just going to be some background information for you all to have. Today I'm going to go over, we're going to do a review of foraging on DNR managed lands. So that's going to include wildlife and aquatic management areas, state forests, state parks, and scientific and natural areas. And then we'll look at some seasonal and safety considerations, road right-of-ways, just some general information about penalties for non-compliance, and then staying connected regarding state parks rules. That was kind of a holdover. This presentation was from our town hall we did with Senator Pa back last year, last fall. So we don't have any proposed rulemaking for regarding foraging right now. So that's just kind of some information. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But to go ahead, so wildlife and aquatic management areas. It's an overview. Before I get into that, I kind of wanted to talk about this recreation compass map. There's a picture of it. It might be kind of small, but this is a great tool, resource for people. You can go to the DNR Recreation Compass online, and it's this online map. It has all these different layers for showing different types of state land. It also has federal land and trails and things like that. But it's great for seeing like, okay, this is a state park, and like over here is a state forest, and wildlife management areas. So it has all the different types of lands we're going to be talking about today. And it's just a great resource. People can type in like your address, and then you can find different lands like around where you live or different parts of the state. So I recommend that just to kind of see what's out there. And okay, so aquatic management areas, or AMAs, provide angler and management access, protect critical shoreland habitat and provide areas for education and research. And we have over 700 AMAs in the state. And then wildlife management areas, or WMAs, they're for the protection and development for wildlife production. These lands are open for hunting, trapping, and fishing, along with opportunities such as bird watching, canoeing, and other compatible uses. So we have 1,506 WMAs over 1.37 million acres. So what can you forage in WMAs and AMAs? So you can harvest edible fruits, seeds, nuts, and mushrooms for personal use in AMAs and WMAs without a permit. And then WMAs also allow harvesting of decorative portions of plants for personal use without a permit. Removal of trees, whole plants, or other vegetative materials not allowed on AMAs and WMAs, except that you can harvest tree sap, and dead down trees can be used as fuel wood with proper permits from Wildlife and Forestry. So these are the Wildlife Division and Forestry Division of the DNR. And then wild rice harvest is allowed on public waters with wild rice harvesting license. So this is like available where you get your fishing license or hunting license. And then WMAs and AMAs are open to ricing unless posted as closed. So just some background, like different DNR managed lands have different purposes and reasons why they were established and rules for foraging. So this is about WMAs. They're part of Minnesota's outdoor recreation system and established to protect those lands and waters that have high potential for wildlife production, public hunting, trapping, fishing, and other compatible recreational uses. And then aquatic management areas are established to protect, develop, and manage lakes, rivers, streams, and adjacent wetlands and lands that are critical for fish and other aquatic life, for water quality, and for their intrinsic biological value, public fishing, or other compatible outdoor recreational uses. So moving on to state forests. Minnesota forests are managed for sustaining long-term ecosystem integrity, healthy forest economies, and the communities that depend on these resources across multiple ownerships. And here's a map. The lighter green those are all the different state forests. We have 60 state forests, and it spans 4.2 million acres. So for harvesting in state forests, no permits needed to collect small amounts of berries, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, or cones from a state forest for personal use. If you're going to collect a large amount of berries, mushrooms, and seeds, so this is like many gallons and bushels, cutting or removing any trees or plants or any commercial harvest, those all require, it's called a special product permit. And these permits are obtained from the DNR Forestry office that's near where you plan to harvest. So these are over on the other side, it's kind of a list of all the things you'd need a permit to do these following things. So cut or remove any trees or plants for any reason. So some examples: birch bark, trees or shrubs, fiddlehead fern, Solomon seal, flowers. Collect a large amount of berries, mushrooms, or fuel wood for personal use or sale. Tap trees for syrup, sap making for personal use or sale, regardless of the amount. And then harvesting Christmas trees, decorative tops or boughs, and then harvesting decorative forest products such as birch sticks, spruce tops, boughs, etc. So for forestry, we have these permits. They're obtained from the DNR Forestry office near where you plan to harvest. They can be paid with check or money order. And the minimum fee is $25 for a special product permit, but it varies depending on the species and the amount desired. So, and then permit fees are also aligned with current market values. Let's see, and then a little information about state forests. Their state forest lands are available for a variety of recreational activities, including hunting, trapping, off-highway vehicle riding, camping, fishing, mountain biking, horseback riding, and wildlife watching. So now we get into state parks. Minnesota state parks and recreation areas preserve the most scenic and historic areas in the state. They offer a variety of facilities, services, and outdoor recreation opportunities. State parks are well developed with modern facilities, but the degree of accessibility varies from park to park. So here's a map of all the state parks across the state. The circles are the state parks or recreation areas, and then the triangles are the state waysides. But there's 66 state parks, 9 recreation areas, and this is they're 235,000 acres for state parks. And this is what you can forage. You can collect edible fruit and mushrooms for personal, non-commercial use. And then you're not allowed to pick wildflowers or any other plants, edible or not, even for personal use. So part of the purpose of state parks is the outdoor recreation activities. Well, so it's outdoor recreation activities to utilize the natural features of the park that can be accommodated without material disturbance of the natural features of the park, or the introduction of undue artificiality into the natural scene may be permitted. Park use shall be primarily for aesthetic, cultural, and educational purposes, and shall not be designed to accommodate all forms or unlimited volumes of recreational use. All right, now we're into scientific and natural areas. These are, we also call them SNAs for short. So scientific and natural areas are exceptional places where native plants and animals flourish, where rare species are protected, and where we can know and study Minnesota's fascinating natural features. So we have 168 SNAs, over 190,000 acres. And this map's a little harder to see. Maybe on the computer it'd be better, but then also, you know, that recreational compass map is great to be able to search for those too. And as far as foraging on SNAs, you're not allowed to collect plants, animals, rocks, and fossils. So you have to leave them in their place to fulfill their life cycle and role in the environment. However, there is berry and mushroom picking for personal use allowed at specific sites. SNAs are established by the DNR commissioner's designation orders. So it depends on the designation order if they allow for berry or mushroom picking. And there's all of these allow berry picking, these listed ones. And then prairie bush clover SNA also includes mushrooms. And SNAs protect natural features of exceptional scientific or educational value, including native plant communities, populations of rare species, and geological features. Okay, so we're going to move on to some safety considerations. We like to just make sure we talk about how improperly identified wild foods can pose serious health risks. Make sure you know how to properly identify and prepare wild foods before eating them, and do so at your own risk. So foraging requires careful understanding of the plants harvested and look-alike species. You want to make sure you know where you are when you're foraging and what those lands permit or prohibit. We have a diverse landscape of private and public lands. Do not harvest from private property without written landowner permission, and be careful to avoid spreading invasive species. This is just a little information about road right-of-ways. So due to safety concerns for all, MnDOT does not allow harvesting or foraging within road rights-of-way. They broadly discourage harvesting of plants along roadsides due to soil disturbances that can cause erosion, plant population effects, and potential overharvest, concern for sale of products, and potential consumption of herbicides used to control noxious weeds and heavy metals. Some penalties for non-compliance. Foraging rules and laws are complex, so please know what you're harvesting and where you're foraging. Consider local rules and regulations to be sure you're foraging safely and legally. On state lands, noncompliance may result in a misdemeanor and immediate removal from the park or forest lands, and could revoke any permits issued and possible fines. On SNAs, noncompliance may result in a petty misdemeanor and a fine up to $300 a violation. And then this was just some information about ginseng. It can't be harvested on AMAs, so the aquatic management areas. And then you can harvest them on WMAs with a special permit from the area wildlife supervisor for just the WMAs that are open to it. And currently there's only one WMA open to ginseng harvest, and that's Whitewater WMA. This slide, yeah, so it's kind of a leftover from when we gave this presentation last year. So we don't have any proposed rulemaking that in regards to foraging right now, but this was just what an example of how people could stay connected with any rulemaking in the future. There was a website and you can sign up to receive notifications. All right, I know that was a lot of information, and it was pretty high level, but hopefully it gives you a good overview as you kick off the task force and start really diving into all these rules and statutes. And I'm going to work with the DNR reps on the task force, and can help them in the future. But does anyone have any questions about what we covered here today?
Any questions, Roger?
Thank you. On page 13, maybe there's something here that I don't understand, but the last bullet point is potential consumption of herbicides used to control noxious weeds and heavy metals. Does it mean consumption of heavy metals or herbicides to control heavy metals? When I read it 3 times and I still don't understand it.
I think just like I know this was like from MnDOT, their
Okay.
concerns about maybe heavy metals.
Yeah, but herbicides don't control heavy metals, right? Thank you. Because every time potential consumption of herbicides used to control noxious weeds and heavy metals.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's just written a little
Okay.
funny. Yeah.
And I reread it and I said, okay, I gotta ask. Maybe there's something I don't know
No,
about
yeah.
herbicides that's new. So, okay.
Right.
I want some of them herbicides.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Super.
Angie?
Thanks. I just want to make sure I understand. So there is no differentiation between native and non-native or invasive species on DNR lands, correct? And then I have a follow-up question, but that one first.
I guess I don't know if you could maybe
Or
say a little
anyone
bit
else
more
with the
about what you
DNR
mean.
that might know? Yep, Matt.
Matt Wappler. In general, our guidelines for state forest lands only pertain to native plants. So we try to control invasives on state lands. So we wouldn't necessarily require a permit to harvest parts from a invasive species. But we're still going to want to know about the activities that are happening, and then provide education to the user or the harvester about this is an invasive plant versus maybe a look-alike native.
Good question.
Thanks.
Angie?
Turns out I might have 2 questions then.
Uh-huh.
So maybe not now, maybe this is a different presentation, but I would love to hear how the DNR manages the tragedy of the commons. And I suspect it's through the way it issues permits. And so I don't know if this is the time for it or not. That might be a multi-part question. And then I want to make one comment that there is a Minnesota noxious weed law. And so I hope at a subsequent conversation, we'll have an opportunity to have seen that in writing or review that. And then the final question is, I don't know where snails fall in the world. So it recently I was asked if someone could harvest Chinese mystery snail, which is a non-native, likely invasive edible snail. And I suspect it is not covered under these, but I'm curious to know if it could be.
Yeah, those are good questions, Angie. I don't know if, Matt, if you know.
Matt Wappler again. As far as snails, that's an animal. So our rules are only pertaining to plants and trees. So, or plant parts. So we wouldn't have control over snails. That would probably fall more under our non-game specialists within ecological and water resources. Or if it's an invasive, non-native snail or other animal, that would fall under the purview of our terrestrial invasive species program.
Angie, go ahead. I'll have her finish up and then David.
Yeah, could that be within the purview of this committee?
I don't know about the snails necessarily, but I'm wondering, let's follow up on that and see if we can get more information. And then the other questions that you had, I think that those are great points. And I see Nick writing down some of those. And so we'll probably discuss that in following meetings. But thank you for bringing them up. They are really good points. David.
Sure, David Schultz. Just a quick question for Matt here also, and I may be getting ahead of myself. Do you classify all non-native species or all non-native plants as invasive or not? And the reason why I ask that is that we're looking at coming up from Iowa and really starting to hit Minnesota now, the golden oyster mushroom, which is not native. Again, I don't know enough about whether or not it's invasive, but I'm just curious from your terminology, is everything non-native invasive?
That's a really good question, David.
That would be best answered by our terrestrial invasive species subject matter experts.
Yeah. David Schultz, my sense is that's a really good scientific question. I don't have a good answer to.
Yeah, and that's certainly someone that we can
very good.
Talk to about providing some more information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And David's writing that down. So I think that that's a great question for us to look into later on in our work. Angie, and then Greg, and then anyone else?
I think I can answer that.
Ingrid?
I think I can answer that question if you'd like.
Oh, go ahead, Angie.
So this is Angie Gupta again. So invasive species are non-native species that cause economic, ecological, or human health harm. And non-native species are species not native to the area. What is considered native? I think we could have a very robust conversation about where native ranges are. So in the Minnesota noxious weed law is pretty clear about what it defines as native or a non-native and invasive specifically. So I think that was the answer to that question. The oyster mushroom, the golden oyster mushroom, there's been just in the last 2 weeks, a U.S. Forest Service paper came out that it is causing displacement of native mushrooms within the logs that it colonizes. So I don't think anyone has gone through the political task to call it officially an invasive, but it looks as if that's where it's likely to land.
Okay. Ingrid, did you have something? Okay.
Just to bring up the, I've been in conversation with the researcher that at the University of Wisconsin-Madison who's been studying this. And I have a question for her I haven't quite answered in terms of that case, is that there are other mushrooms that appear, as wood rot or fungi, that I'm curious if they did any testing about the exclusion or lack of diversity in those wood samples as well. Because generally, whenever one of these wood rotting fungi, they don't play nice with each other. They kind of push each other out. So I have some questions about how important that is, and I've been following the conversation across the news, and I think it's overstated a little bit, and that would be the question I would have for her. So,
Well, share with us the answer you get. Ingrid.
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to follow up and whatever ideas we come up with, I hope they do consider accessibility and contemporary payments. I was a bit
Yes.
astounded to learn you had to have a check or money order for said permits, and I'm not sure. That seems exclusionary, to be honest.
Great point. We've got Kristen online, and then we're going to come to you, Gary. Is that okay? Okay. Kristen?
Hi, Kristen Poppleton. Thanks. Let's see, a couple of things. I was sitting for a while. First of all, I'm super pro talking tragedy to commons. Angie, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that would be a really great discussion. My question is sort of broader, and the more I'm listening to folks talking too, the more I don't know how we resolve this, but putting the limits or the definition on what we're talking about foraging obviously seems really important. And I'm wondering, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but like, so wild rice is now must be excluded from what we're talking about because we already have rules around that in the state for permitting. And I'm interested maybe also just in how the process that went into that, because I think it could be useful to us to understand. And then the last part of just what I'm thinking about as we're thinking about how are we defining specific or species, what we're talking about foraging and native versus non-native, as climate change is moving species north, and displacement could also just be replacement as things are moving. And so how do we, that rapid change is right before us as well. So those are sort of some things I've been thinking about as I'm listening to you all.
Thank you, Kristen. Gary, thank you.
Gary Wyatt, thanks DNR. Was Jennifer on the presentation? I can't remember who that was that gave the DNR presentation. Excellent presentation. Thank you for the handout, and thank you, Matt and Kelly, for the handouts here. And I think I just found out my answer. I wanted to know if the permits are standardized throughout the DNR system and for each state park or each MA or AMA or WMA and so forth. And it looks like a QR code goes to that permit site. Is that right? Okay. And then I had a comment on other states. Kelly, you're from Wisconsin. Are you familiar with their laws, or do they have a state law on foraging? And then I have a comment on Pennsylvania, Penn State, and Virginia. I have foraging type councils and groups and been foraging for years on the East Coast, obviously. I may do some research myself on some of the contacts I have over there, but yeah, to see if those states, Pennsylvania and maybe Virginia, to see if they've made state type recommendations for their foraging task force or laws and so forth. That might be interesting to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Please do let us know what you find out. Any other questions or comments or thoughts? Ingrid.
I did have a question, Ingrid Schneider, and it relates to the quantities people can take, for personal use. I imagine it's purposeful that small is not defined, but I am curious if there's a range or how that is done. Perhaps it's by what is taken.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to definitely explore that in detail in of our future meetings when we start talking about personal use. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely agree with you. Anyone else? Luke.
Luke Skinner. I think I just want to follow up on Kristen's. I think it really is important that we define what we're talking about as far as what is foraging and all whether native, non-native, all that. I mean, we can't hardly have a conversation, I think, in detail without scoping it down so we're all on the same page about where we're going to be with what we're talking about. To me, it's clear it's state lands. I'm from that perspective, but what we're talking about and whether animals are going to be included in this. And so just want to support that thought.
Absolutely, Luke. And I would say that that's probably what our first topic is going to be at the very next meeting. It's kind of defining some of that and getting some of that information. That leads me to another thing that's going to be coming down the road. But the good thing is we're really good on time. And so one of the questions I had for you guys after, if we don't have any further questions for Jessica or comments on the presentation. And if we do, we can still have that discussion, but something I wanted to pose to all of you is what information would you think would be helpful to get ahead of time for the next meeting or at the next meeting? Two is that what topics do you want to explore and dig into so that we can start mapping some of that for our future meetings? And you can either state some of it here because we've got some time and we can do some discussion about that. Or also outside of this meeting is please email our staff because they will condense that into some information they can share with all of us. Okay. Gary?
Gary Wyatt again. Was wondering if I do find some information from other states, can I just email Nick and then he could share it with the committee?
Yes,
Great,
thank you, Gary. Matt?
Matt Wappler. I'd really like to learn more about, other cultural practices and uses of plants. In recent years, we've heard about certain groups wanting to use plant parts that we never had people using before. And it falls into this kind of gray area of, well, it's not listed in our species list of what constitutes a foraged species versus a special product species. So just knowing a little more about what different cultures use in their foods and their practices would be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I agree. Peter?
I'm hoping to share some resources within from the foraging community, both for cultural and just general familiarity with the variety of forageable products that are out there and people might be interested in. So.
Okay, so I've got Greg, David, and then Kristen.
Yeah, Greg Qualley again. I would like to see a list of the statutes that pertain to gathering anything from public lands so that we've got a good understanding of what those laws state, what the current interpretation is, and what a different interpretation might be based on what the rules are that are being applied by the Department of Natural Resources right now. So maybe we can get somebody in that's got some good background in that and give us a little presentation.
We're all looking at Bob, and Bob's like,
well, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be addressing this.
Thank you, Greg. And just so you all know, everything you said, Nick is diligently writing these things down, so we will be following up on those. Okay, David and then Kristen.
Sure, David Schultz. Just two things. First, I want to underscore a point that Luke made here, which I think is about what do we actually mean by foraging? And I really want to get a better sense of how we define that. A lot of the other comments I agree with also, but I want to underscore your point too. I really would like to see some comparative state data a lot because I want to get some kind of sense. I grew up in New York State and just quickly here, like in New York State, the joke used to be that mushroom will cost you $700 if you pick it in a state park, which was basically an absolute ban on any foraging at any state property, state parks at all. So I just want to get some sense of what other states are doing. I hate to use the phrase, we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel, but we ought to get some kind of sense of what other practices other states have.
Thank you, David. Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen Poppleton. Yes, love to hear other state data. The thing I would love to hear from and learn from is perhaps it's the two appointees that are coming on that are representing the tribes, but I know the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, or GLFWIC, is managing this hunting and gathering, and this is on native lands as well. And I think there might be something to be learned from some folks here in our backyard, or from 1854 treaty, someone from those realms, just to hear how culturally that's working, but also like impact. How does it actually work to make it sustainable?
Thank you, Kristen. Roger, Ingrid, and then Kelly.
Thank you, Roger Scraba. One of the confusing, you talked about statute or something. When I pick up this handout and I read the handout and it says, in Minnesota State Forest, you do not need a permit to harvest small amounts of edible mushrooms for personal use, harvest small amounts of edible berries for personal use. And then below it, it says, foraging permits for state forest lands. You need a special product permit to collect berries, mushrooms, nuts, cones, dead fuel wood of any time to amount to sell. So I'm assuming that when I finished reading it, when I was reading it, I goes, wait a minute, and then to sell, and then commercial. I don't know if there should be a heading there that says for commercial use, you need a permit to do these. Because again,
Yeah.
this can be confusing if you're not, versed. And if there's other cultures out there, they're looking at it. They read the first one and that's it. And off to the races they go.
That's
And
right.
then when they get caught, there's like, well, it says here. We didn't read it all the way. What says here? So
Yeah.
I, not that it's not clear, but it's not clear to everyone. And
Yeah.
that's my only concern.
I totally agree with you, Roger, that sometimes having it more clear right off the bat is just better. I shared a little bit about how I've been foraging incorrectly. And I love foraging, have been doing it forever. I started with my parents teaching me how to forage, and we always did it as a family, loved it. And then recently, you learn from people who teach you.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily teach you the right way to forage. And I learned recently, the last couple of years, that I've been foraging Solomon seal kind of illegally, in state parks, and I didn't know that I was doing that. It's just small amounts for my own personal consumption, but I found out I wasn't supposed to be doing that. But I was told by others who did that was fine. And I didn't see anything on the DNR website that was to the contrary at that time. So, but you're right that it has to be very clear and sometimes more detail about the different species that we can. Okay, Ingrid and then Kelly.
Yeah, just Ingrid Schneider, along those lines. As urban city parks are moving toward edible parks and foraging that are legal and encouraged for food scarcity and food deserts, I think it'll be really important whatever recommendations are made are clearly communicated.
Yes. Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly Bruns, DNR. I just would also like to add for background requests for information as we work with our tribal partners that we are provided some information not only on the traditional ecological knowledge of these plants, but there's also cultural resources at these sites that we may not be aware of. So some background on the sensitivity of being in a sacred site or a significant site that's outside of just the activity that is taking place. So if we have a way to add that into a conversation at some point, I think that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. David.
Yeah. David Schultz, one more aspect of the confusion issue in a different way is that I bet if we walk, I always say this at Hamlin, when people ask me, what do people think? And I say, I don't know, let's go down to University and Snelling and talk to people and find out what they think. And if we went down to University and Snelling and talked to a bunch of people about foraging, I think, and I don't know how to address this, they would be confused by all the different types of property the state has. And then if I said, for example, let's go over, which is one of the places that I go over to Battle Creek a lot to go foraging, and the rules are different at different counties and so forth. And I don't know how we can address this issue, and because we can't, it's a state and local issue. But if somehow we can come out of this task force also with some greater clarity so that people understand, and I don't know how to do this, state versus county versus city versus types of state property, because I find that very, very confusing also too, and not knowing where I can go and do what.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David. Angie, Gary.
So Angie Gupta, in my happy place, I like to think that foraging might help resource managers deal with invasive and potentially non-native species, but I'm actually unaware of any research that supports that foraging does that. Can I ask that to be looked up in background? Thanks.
Yeah. Gary.
Gary Wyatt, David, I appreciate that comment because I know I live in a county that has county parks. Most counties have county parks, and I don't know if they have rules on foraging at those county parks. A very interesting topic, though. If we develop this for the state, maybe we should encourage our counties to consider foraging laws under their jurisdiction, possibly. Oh, maybe not. Okay, thank you.
And maybe we should see if we can look and see what counties have for foraging too, some information. Roger.
Part of my concern is the state should be setting that standard, i.e. if we're talking fishing and a county said you can have 4 walleyes and the state said you can have 6, and then the other county says you can have 8 and the state says no, you can have 6, but we're the county and at some point someone has to say this is the statute. You can be less than this, but you can't be more. That, and whether we become that, I don't know where we're going with this, but if that eliminates the confusion, it gets into the county saying, don't tread on me, and it's kind of like, well, we're trying to protect a resource.
Yeah.
But if you're managing it and you're comfortable with it, just know that if everyone knows you have it, you're going to get everyone. And so it's a conundrum for me.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out who came first,
Yeah.
our statute or the counties.
Great topic for discussion later on. Peter.
Yeah, to kind of, this is Peter Martiniaco, to kind of expand on that, I think, these kinds of things ultimately should be to work much like hunting and fishing, or like hunting specifically, that it covers all appropriate lands within the state of Minnesota. And I would hope to ultimately partner with the federal jurisdictions about what foraging is, so that we can have consistent property, access to this, and it's clear understanding how that works. I know that's outside our scope, but I just see that as something that to look toward stuff that this is going to be as universal as possible. And obviously, as Kelly pointed out, there's other land considerations that we need to be aware of that can affect, our access, whether it's, for whatever reason, for other cultural reasons.
Thank you, Peter. Luke.
Luke Skinner, Three Rivers Park District is a government agency. We are in Western Hennepin County and also in Carver and Scott counties. And part of the reason that I have interest in being on this group is because the mandate right here, the legislation, is for developing recommendations for state lands. But anytime a state, whether it's a rule or a law is put into place, especially like state lands, we look at it very closely because we do not want to reinvent the wheel, right? We want to be able to then come alongside and adapt for this purpose. As I said, we've been meeting with the Dakota already, with SMSC from Shakopee, and we've had walks already. We're already talking about how to do this well. And so, from just that perspective, from a local government agency perspective, state setting the standards is great. Then we can look at that to say, do we come alongside, or do we want to do something similar in our faction? So we do have foraging rules right now, and we're looking at the same thing. How do we sustainably do that and actually open it up a bit?
Mm-hmm. That's a really great point, Luke. Thank you. Greg.
Yeah, Greg Qualley. Just a follow-up on this, but I think the fact that we're sitting here at this table at this point in time is indicative of what's going on and has went on in a lot of other jurisdictions, primarily states, particularly if you look at what happens in the Pacific Northwest. So foraging in the Pacific Northwest is big business. And it's worth a lot of money, and it supports a lot of people in their occupation, basically. So there's sidebar issue here, but if you want to find out about the deep end of foraging, there's a book out. I read it on an e-edition. It's called The Mushroom Hunter. Excellent publication, excellent read into the whole deep end of the foraging community. That may be good background reading. It's pretty interesting read. But there's things happened out west that really promulgated a lot of pretty strict rules on foraging because the agencies weren't able to get in front of what was going on from a commercial standpoint. And this book kind of speaks to that particular thing. So just an idea there to background maybe.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And you,
More
Gary.
comment. I do agree with you that Peter and Luke and others, that I think this rule should pertain to all lands, county lands and everything. Although, and it's probably a Minnesota Department of Agriculture law that some counties have their own noxious weeds in their own county that they have to monitor and regulate. So that's just a case in point that counties are different than some of the state statutes. But I agree that this committee, it'd be nice that this state task force recommendation cover all lands of the state of Minnesota, county and state.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Anyone else? Well, then I would say let's wrap up. We've got about 10 minutes and it looks like we've got a lot of topics and things that we're going to be getting information to all the members here. If you do come up with something else, please do email Nick and Stephanie and myself, and then we will make sure that we have that out for all of you next time. Stephanie?
Thank you. Stephanie Klein. Just a few next steps to talk about. We'll be doing a poll about meeting times, and I'm not sure exactly what format it's going to take. If it doesn't have kind of a blank space to say, if you have additional information, then just email us and let us, if it's something like, I can do Monday afternoons, but not the second Monday of the month, or, I know committing to schedules ahead of time can be complicated. So feel free to share those complications. We will do our best to kind of factor everything in and find times that work for everybody. And reminding all that all of our in-person meetings will have a hybrid option, and we will do our best to keep everybody involved and engaged in those conversations for those who are attending hybrid. Again, we'll be sending emails to you individually to see if you would like to participate in the optional interviews, which will ask questions about, what your own goals are for the task force and what you would like to learn about and what you would like to make sure everybody else learns about, and kind of everything else you can think of that, we'll have questions that cover everything we can think of that's really relevant to this being a task force that develops recommendations that really cover everything you all want it to cover, and that they are, specific and actionable as the legislation has requested, and all of those good things. Those interviews are optional, but we the staff and facilitators appreciate the opportunity to bring all of that information together and kind of feed it back out to all of you so that nothing is being missed and that it's kind of documented, because someone might say something in a meeting where you're like, ooh, cool, but you don't necessarily remember every detail. Go ahead.
Stephanie, in relationship to that, could we request that a background document, reference document file be developed on the website?
Yeah.
So that we all have access to the same information.
Yep.
We're not necessarily leaving it at home, so to speak.
Right.
Yep.
So.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's a good point about things on the website versus, what might be left at home. Paper is convenient, but not always super sustainable. If anybody would like to not have paper copies when you are in person, then let us know, and we won't print them for you. We do find that it is very handy, you know, for the in-person meetings, but if anyone wants to reduce their paper footprint, then just let us know and we'll exclude your printouts from packets. Let's see, I anticipate that between now and the next meeting, there might be more written materials like the DNR fact sheets as you all share resources that that you're aware of. So there may be some homework or pre-work for prior to the next meeting. Other than that, I think it's really just stay tuned for more information and share your thoughts as you have time to digest today's meeting. Luke.
Luke Skinner, just one clarifying question. So when we're talking about in-person meetings, are they always here? Or I know we're talking about one offsite meeting, you know, on a field trip, but is that the expectation in person is here?
Yes.
Thank you.
And maybe it'd be nice if we get consistently the same room. Would be nice.
And a big part of that is the technology. Having been on the Zoom side of some of these task force meetings, the audio quality is really terrific.
Yeah. Anything else? Well, before we adjourn, I'd love to just recognize a few staff that's also with us here today that we didn't introduce before because they will be continuing to be in our meetings as well. And if I can just have them kind of stand up and introduce themselves and the work that they do, that would be great. Can I start with you first, Ben?
I'm Ben Stanley. I'm nonpartisan counsel to the Senate Environment Committee. So I work with senators on the Environment Committee, drafting legislation and helping them move things through the legislative process.
Thank you.
I'm Janelle Taylor. I basically do what Ben does with the House and stuff. House Environment Committee.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sally Olson. I'm a commission administrator with the LCC. I'm just helping out today, filling in for Mina, but we'll be in and out at your meetings and available if there's any questions.
Okay, great. Why don't we go to DeMarco?
DeMarco Wilson, commission administrator.
Okay, great. And then I'll have Pena. Yeah, okay. Well, you'll see these faces in almost every one of our task force meetings. Well, that is it then. Thank you, everyone. And I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
There's
Thank you, Greg, for bringing
that, isn't there? Oh.
Region office for. Prior to that, I was the area supervisor. About a year and a half, and prior to that, I was the area supervisor up in Little Fort. So, like I said, I've been all over this.
Yeah. So, almost 28 years here. The last 7 years. I was deputy director of sales.